Everybody, welcome in. I am so glad you guys are here with me today. We have the most interesting show that I mean, I do a lot of interesting shows. Okay, but this is going to be a lot of fun. I have Jesus Payan here with me today, and we're going to be talking about the possibility of deceptive timelines in America and actually all over the world. Perhaps there's been some human resets over the years, and we're going to really look into that today because, sometimes history, as we've been taught, it just doesn't seem to add up. Okay. And so that's why I wanted to do this show today. And, the things that I've looked at this week, I tell you, Jesus really turned me on to a whole lot of stuff this week that has blown my mind. And I think it's going to blow your minds as well. Okay. And, so I'm gonna go over a couple little things before I bring Jesus up, okay? Because what we're going to talk about are timelines seeming to be impossible, okay? Architecture not adding up to the alleged founding of particular cities, all right? Perhaps there's traces of advanced civilizations that have been destroyed by earthquakes, fires, and other natural disasters. Have our ways of life been reset over the years to suit the agendas of a particular group of people in charge? I think so. Okay. How many human resets have we had in America? Probably more than we think. And apparently the past is hidden from us to keep us ignorant. Okay. And versions of our past could have been changed, altered, twisted, and mistranslated to fit into someone else's version of reality. I personally think it's up to us to uncover these mysteries and do our research on it and find out what the true history is in this country. We may never know, but at least we can look into it. And I think that that's important. Some of the theories we talk about today, even you guys that are watching, may not agree with all of them. And that's okay. I think the point of this show today is to have everybody think and to open our minds to the possibilities and creating our new reality, perhaps something that's beautiful, and we're able to do that. Okay, and there's power in knowing the past and imagining our futures. Okay, so I would like to bring Jesus Payan up. Jesus is an actor who plays Gonzo on the hit series Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, along with numerous other movies. He's also a longtime Sasquatch researcher, and he's on a lifelong quest to uncover the mysteries of that creature and of this world. And so I'd like to bring up Jesus to come help me talk about this today. Hey.
Howdy doody.
Hey, good morning over there where you are.
Good morning.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Jesus, you have really opened up my mind to so much stuff I've never even thought about until this week. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome, and thank you for listening and giving it a chance to check it out, because there's so many out there right now that are just got them blinders on and only want to look at one thing, and if it's not that thing, it doesn't make sense. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that you are into Bigfoot field research and have experience with ETs and UFOs and all these other cryptids and weird things that are out there, it's only normal that people like you and I are inquisitive and
Right.
want to know more about all the mysteries of the world. It's not just that. Yeah.
Right.
So when did things seem to start not adding up for you as far as our history goes?
I would say once I started kind of looking into archaeology and anthropology, and cryptozoology, all those kind of came at the same time for me, if not crypto first. Being 4 years old, starting to read into the like Arthur C. Clarke's work, and that's when I started kindergarten in England. But the history of things for me was, things didn't add up with what they were telling us. First thing for me was that the Native American people had no written language, that we just could only tell each other stories. Hey, pass it down the line,
Right.
When all of a sudden, Aztecs and Mayan temples and tons of hieroglyphs were available, the codices, a bunch of written language and mathematics and science,
Yeah.
and that right there was my first
Yeah.
and then that's when I started looking into different histories and alternative forbidden history.
Right.
And the more and more I looked into it, the more and more things weren't making sense. Because if we're to believe exactly what they're telling us, half of the things I've experienced shouldn't exist at all. And when you realize that these, like any individual, a person, a government, your boss at work, a company, whatever, once you understand that they're willing to lie and have been lying to you comfortably,
Yeah.
for me, it's really hard to take any of it to heart and to call matter of fact and the truth in whatever they're trying to say. So I don't throw it out the door, all that information and what they've put forth, because they mix truth with bullcrap. But I keep my mind to where, what, that might not be it. That might not be the truth. Let me look at all the other possibilities first and do the real research. And after I see all that, then I can determine, what seems more likely.
Yeah. Well, the things that you were sending me some information, and I was doing my own digging into stuff, and it ranges from everything from the gold rush of the 1850s in San Francisco, or 1840s, all the way to the mud flood, the theories of the mud flood, the Tartarian Empire, giants in America, orphans on trains, like all this stuff. We're going to talk about every bit of that today, and we're going to kind of bring it all together and just kind of present it and try to have a little fun doing it, because this is all very new to me and it's very interesting. And we're talking about advanced civilizations that have potentially been wiped out and covered up. We're talking about giants that once roamed the earth with us quite recently, actually.
Yeah.
So there's a vested interest in getting rid of things like free energy and covering that stuff up right now. And there has been. And oh my God, the beautiful architecture, we don't have that these days. So let's get into it. Let's start off with San Francisco. Okay. Let's start off. I've got some pictures here. Now, I have so many. It's going to take me a minute to scroll up. I have so many things to show today. All right. So this is San Francisco. All right. Back in around I think it's 1850. Okay. And back in 1849, they had a gold rush where there was allegedly hardly anything built in San Francisco. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hardly anything. They said that in 1848, there were only 1,000 people living in San Francisco. Okay. But by 1850, they had 25,000 people living there. And I don't know, it looks like those houses, it looks like there's a lot of them. If that's 1850, that's a lot of houses. And they look like they've been there for a while to me.
Yeah. No, for sure. They look like they've been there for a long while. And there's some really, really big ones there.
Yeah.
Not horse and buggy and carriage type of looking work, like they show us in the movies and whatnot.
Well, it's just a little bit odd that we're taught that there's only a few people there, 1,000 people max, and this just kind of popped up overnight. Okay, and then let's fast forward it to 1915. Okay, there's something called the World's Fair. Okay.
Oh boy.
And this is something that really blew my mind that I've started looking into this week. Compliments of Jesus. Okay. And this is something that was there only a mere 30, 40 years after the first people started living there and building houses, allegedly. Okay.
Right.
How did this pop up so fast? That looks kind of something from the old world style. Like that looks ancient almost at this point.
Oh well, seriously, these old fairs that we're told were just built to have a fair. Literally, they're almost the size of cities. Some of them, with very very complex irrigation and aqueduct systems.
Mhm.
And then they say, well, it was since we just built this as a fair, we're just going to tear it all down because it was just for fun.
Okay, exactly. Well, it's not just being torn down. They had like natural disasters,
Fires,
earthquakes, whatever way it could be done. These things were all torn down. There were world fairs all over. There's one in Chicago. I believe there's one in New York, San Francisco, and they had this beautiful architecture at these world fairs. Now, let's kind of talk about the world fairs for just a moment. Just the architecture alone. Okay, this is pretty elaborate. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Elaborate. For 1915, considering that town was founded in 1850. Okay.
Yeah, and they said that they built all these things within 1 to 2 years with their technology that they had there, which again was horse and buggy.
Right. And we have these it looks like something out of ancient Greece. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I've got a ton of pictures. I mean, this is called the Liberal Arts Palace. I mean, these things are called palaces. They literally had palaces built. In San Francisco in 1915. This is the Machinery Palace. Okay. Let's see. I have the Nations of the East courtyard. Okay. And look how little those people are compared to these columns and these statues. That doesn't look new. That doesn't look like that was built in the past 50 years even.
See, this is the thing you got to remember. Like over here where I live, we have little villages, quote unquote. They're not like from the 1800 villages and stuff, but they're current. But they're called villages, and then we have our Alamogordo is our largest town right here in this area. Okay, and we have about 75,000 people there. All right.
Okay.
So, Alamogordo is about 7 miles long, 4 miles wide. All right. And that picture of San Francisco that you showed is more dense and complex with supposedly like 25,000 people. Right. Okay. Yeah. Compared to our 55 to 75,000 people in this town. In this town, we only have one building with more than one floor. One building. We don't even have we don't even have escalators anywhere in this town. You know what I mean? So and that's way more people than they're saying there was, and to build that city. And out of this population, only a small percentage are construction workers that build buildings. So unless every single person there, children, mom, grandma, everybody was building, and had apparently great knowledge of architecture.
I mean, classical architecture from the old world style.
Yeah. And the thing is that we're finding this same situation throughout the United States, throughout the different countries, and throughout the world. These same style buildings. Some of them are buried to a point. Some of them have been turned to. A lot of our Capitol buildings, almost all of our Capitol buildings, are these buildings. Washington, the White House. If you look at when they were renovating the White House, it's a mud flood building. They were able to go down. They went down a hole real nice and deep, and you could see that there was columns that you would want to be seen, not be buried, for a bigger floor. And a lot of these buildings are huge. Have you the Sistine Chapel, or
Uh-huh.
you got all these huge buildings that are way too big for us, you know.
Okay.
And a really cool thing that I'll try to send to you the links to is looking for ancient paintings, not ancient as in cave wall,
Uh-huh.
but very old paintings from a while back, from the
Yes.
Victorian era and Da Vinci times and all that fun stuff. Okay,
Yes.
looking for paintings of buildings that still exist today,
Okay.
or at least there's pictures of actual photos of may have they if they've been destroyed since then. But the interesting thing is this: in the paintings, they'll have people in the paintings standing by these buildings. And then when they have the actual picture or current image of that same building that was in the paintings from so long ago,
Right.
16th century, whatever, and you have us today stand by that same spot where that painting of that person was, we only come up to their waist or their thighs. You know what I mean? And a lot of these buildings have huge doors,
They
huge
do.
doors,
They do.
and balconies that we can't see over. It's like literally we're looking we're in the middle of them.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of giant things out there that they all they do is they have the big giant doors and they'll add cut a little door out in the giant door. Like, oh,
Exactly. For the little
we,
humans.
we had to bring in a really big couch.
Right. I know
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into that in just a little bit here because we've got the Tartarian Empire that some people say never existed. Okay, and I think there's a reason for that. That people, if they did exist, which I believe that they did after the research I did this week,
I think so.
I think they did, and I think a lot of these buildings have ties to Tartarian architecture. Okay.
Yep.
And I think there's a vested interest in getting rid of this type of building because what they
Right.
were doing, which we will get into, it had to do with harnessing free energy. Okay.
Yeah.
And in addition to being absolutely beautiful. Okay. Now I do need to make note that these buildings that I've shown, many of them have been destroyed. Okay. They were taken down. In one way or another. Not all of them. I do know that this one right here, the Palace of Fine Arts, this is actually still standing, but the columns behind it are like ruins, basically. But some of these buildings are still standing. Most of them are not. And yeah, so they've been replaced with really ugly buildings, temporary buildings like apartment complexes. Okay,
Yeah.
things that it went from a beautiful old world style to ugly boxed brutalist architecture. Okay,
Yeah.
Jesus, do you think that was by design?
Yeah. What we're dealing with is one, the false history, of course, like we're talking about, but the repurposing of a lot of these buildings. If they hadn't been destroyed, they've been repurposed as, like I said, the Capitol buildings, breweries, breweries, insane
I have a hard time
asylums,
pronouncing that. So
penitentiaries. So those are the ones that they've repurposed and used. The other ones they've repurposed, they literally change the facade of it. They'll cut off the towers, the pointed tops, any type of antenna looking stuff gone, or they'll turn it to a flagpole. They'll just throw a flag on it. And you'll have these just flags everywhere on these buildings. But yeah, so yeah, they're purposely hiding what's happened and the real histories of things and how old certain things are. And that's why some people, when they go buy a house and they renovate and they find out that there's, like the guy in Turkey, what happened to him? He went in he found a city under his house, literally a whole city that could fit 10,000 people,
Wow.
So yeah, that doesn't just, that's just not somebody with a itch, scratching with a spoon or something.
Yeah, that's a big cover up.
There's huge parts of what we look at today and don't even realize that it's hundreds of years older than we even think.
Exactly. Right there. Bingo. Okay. So let's get into the breweries. Okay. The
Breweries.
buildings.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there are buildings all across this country. We're in the United States of America, North America, all over the world, really. But a lot of breweries from the 1900s were operating out of buildings that look like castles.
Yeah.
Okay. And that even has an antenna on top. This is actually from Salt Lake City. Okay. It's a brewery that's from the, I believe it's early 1900s right there. People say this is very odd because there were people who were moving into this area and they weren't even into drinking and stuff like that. So and they weren't building buildings like this. It was kind of more basic living back then. So it just didn't make sense. It's almost like someone inherited this building. They inherited it and put that in there. They didn't build this for a brewery. It was already here.
Well, okay, like if you understand the process of a brewery, how they work, this design makes no sense at all. It makes no sense whatsoever why it would be this way to make beer for the giant vats. You know, they have, like you said, it looked like it's been repurposed.
It looks like
inherited. Yeah, definitely. These are a lot of these buildings. They look like they belong to. They're just fancy giant houses.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, this is another brewery out in Texas from 1894. This is from the 1800s. Yeah. Why would a brewery? I mean, were they really making that much beer to get out? And there were a lot of these, you guys.
And in that time, why would you go through the trouble of designing something that tall?
Extravagant.
For a basic need. You don't need to do that. That's what, like I said, in this area right here, our oldest building is about a little over 200 years old. Okay. And it's in the little village of Tularosa, 1 story. Next door had a 2-story little brothel, which looks like a motel now, but so that's not needed. What they're claiming they built for that purpose. Like normally when you build something for a business, you're building it for the maximum efficiency for said business. And there's no need for any of that to be in that fashion.
It's just a little suspicious. It's kind of like, well, is this really our history right here? Because it just doesn't seem like the need for it and the architecture and everything adds up, you know, and the amount of people that are living there, you know.
It's one of the biggest arguments. I'm sorry. Don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you did.
But the argument that we're going to get, okay, and it's the easiest argument they can throw at us is, I went on the Googleator or the Wiki or the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Right.
And it says this was made in this year. Right here, it says it. Look, it says it.
Yeah. Or our textbooks in school.
Yeah. So that's the only argument that people have, because nobody was there that's alive today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all we have is these pictures and what they've told us. You know what I mean? So that's why I just had to mention that, because I know there's going to be people that are going to be like arguing. You know, it's like, well, we understand that. We understand what everything says right now, but that's the whole purpose of what we're saying, is it might not be true.
Exactly. Well, and there's also this whole idea of timeline splits and things like that too. And I'm not gonna lie, I was talking to Josh from Paranormal Roundtable a couple of days ago. We were both talking about how we felt like maybe we had gone on some weird. Oh, you got on this T-shirt.
Yep.
I love it. Hey, I've got a Paranormal Roundtable bag right here beside me.
Nice.
So, and stickers and everything. I've got patches, you name it. Josh knows how to hook it up.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
That's
all
cool.
around awesome guy. Okay, and I hope you're watching, Josh, because we're like, what's up, Josh? But anyways, we were talking about how it's so weird. We feel like we might have had another timeline jump or something, because a lot of new information has come to light in my world this week, and things that I've never thought of. Things have been a little off Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. I feel like things have been a little off.
Yeah.
So there's also that aspect to all of this that we're talking about today. It's hard to explain it, okay,
Yeah.
and not sound like you're a total crazy lunatic to some
Mhm.
people, you know. But
Oh yeah.
speaking of lunatics, wow, that's a great way to
Segue.
total. Absolutely. We're going to talk about asylums next. Okay.
Yes.
So back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, all these lunatic asylums started popping up all over the country. Now, Jesus, do you think there were that many lunatics running crazy through our country to where we needed all these lunatic asylums? And mind you, these things were owned by the state. Okay. But they look like castles.
I'd say currently, yes, there's enough lunatics running around. But back then, no. There was so many different situations people were put in those places. Just being a cast out of society landed you there. Running out of money landed you there. If you spoke a language they didn't understand, landed you there.
Drinking alcohol, not paying your bills.
Oh yeah, all kinds of stuff. This one woman, she was I forget her name, but she wanted to see what it was like being in one of those insane asylums back then. This was back then. This wasn't somebody researching right now.
She was a reporter, right? For a
newspaper. And she went and studied and tried to figure out how to do the mannerisms and look crazy. And when she got there, she was like, "Oh damn! I don't even have to act. They don't care. They don't care. I'm normal, and they don't care. They're like, come on in." And she found out that there was a lot of people there that were not crazy. That were stuck in there. Yes.
Well, we're talking about we've talked about the human reset. Okay, there could have been human resets over the years, over the centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start learning that a lot of these insane asylums, and the last picture that I showed, that's in Georgia. Okay, this is in a place called Milledgeville, which is down in middle Georgia, farther south than where I live. That's a gigantic building for a small town called Milledgeville. It was home to, it's actually our state capital before it moved to Atlanta. Okay. But Milledgeville is known for the insane asylum there. And I believe it was actually for women at some point.
A lot of women.
But a lot of women were put into those places by their husbands or, because they were lunatics, but that just means that they were having women problems and female problems and overly emotional and things that are just not, it didn't really warrant being locked up in an insane asylum. So we're going to tie this into the castles, right? Because a lot of these places look like they've been here for a long time, even the penitentiaries. Okay. This is in West Virginia Penitentiary. That looks like a castle to me. Okay. We've got Eastern State Penitentiary. Okay. It's a castle, right? I think what I'm trying to do today is just make the connection of these repurposed buildings, perhaps having a longer history and something a little more mysterious than what we think.
Right. So check this out, okay? All right. So what we were fed, America, I'm just talking about America, not Europe or any other countries. For just America, what we've been told is that there was nothing here. There were some natives running around with teepees. There were some other natives that were building dirt mounds,
Yeah.
And there was no written language. There was nothing here.
Oh, yeah.
And we just started at about 1776,
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see. They were savages. They're considered fauna. All right. Yeah. So now we're finding out with LiDAR and so many discoveries since then. They've been telling all this stuff. Like what we've talked about today. You're familiar with Glenn Beck?
Yeah.
Okay, so strangely, didn't know on his show every once in a while he would have a piece on history, a historical piece. Really interesting. I found a lot of interesting stuff I never knew he would talk about. So this one episode, which I can't find anywhere anymore, this one episode he was talking about that he had come upon some historical research about America that this is in Germany. I think it was through Germany. That in Germany they said that that when they had visited America so long ago, that it was filled with cities everywhere and huge buildings and all kinds of different races, and it was like the trade center of the world. This area, and in the Americas, and then, like I said, I couldn't ever find that video again.
Oh, it got scrubbed, huh?
Yeah. So and now we're finding out that all these buildings, right, they've been here for a very, very long time. We're finding out that there was huge pyramids everywhere. The Mayans and the Aztecs were all up in North America, all the way up to Canada. There's been things found. There's different Viking stuff, Jewish artifacts. I mean, the list goes on and on of stuff being found here in the Americas. And we got to think, if I was trying to accomplish a reset, right, and wipe out everything, however they did it, I think the mud flood was part of it. Had to do something with it. The only thing we would want to do is say, "Oh, there was nothing here. Everything's brand new. You guys were stupid. You guys were slaves. None of y'all, we weren't all equal just a little while ago." You know what I mean? That's it's because to me, that last era, like you mentioned, with the Antiquitech, all the antennas and all that stuff, and the free energy, it seems like everybody was getting along, and there was free energy, and everything was going real good, and somebody got greedy as hell.
Yeah.
Wiped out everybody and has tried to restart it all, for a whole different reason and nefarious reasons. I think that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, I can't disagree with that. I mean, after the things that I've looked into, and I've always had my suspicions. Okay. But now it's much more, it's apparent now. Alicia, thank you so much for that super chat. I really do appreciate you. That was really sweet. Okay. So I absolutely agree with that. Let's see. Okay, so we had the prisons, we have colleges. Okay. All of these buildings, and we're going to tie this into the Tartarian Empire. Okay. Because when we get into the Tartarians, okay, we're going to see that all of they had influences on palaces, okay, and they called them power stations, okay, worldwide. They turned them into universities, museums, theaters, banks, chambers of commerce, stock exchanges, churches, high schools, courts, banks, post offices, libraries, opera theaters, research institutes, casinos, and tourist attractions, including the World Fairs. Okay, so it all kind of makes sense now to me. Okay, now the next thing that I have for us to show and to talk about actually is the giant trees. Okay, so are we ready for the giant trees, Jesus?
I think we are.
Okay, this is mind-blowing as well. Okay, I'm going to state before I bring any pictures up, I am Team Stump. Okay.
Right.
And by the end of the show today, everyone's probably going to be picking sides. Okay. Because this is something, it's not totally new to me. I've heard this before. But there's a theory that there are mesas out in the United States and all over the world that are actually the remnants of giant tree stumps. Okay.
Yep.
What do you think about this, Jesus?
Well, I think it's a great possibility. Depending on what histories you believe. There's a lot of histories that talk about these giant trees. The Bible talks about these giant trees. The Bible talks about that the Nephilim and their children were giants, and that they started ravishing the earth and using all its resources and cutting down everything. And we're seeing evidence of that. if these the systems that we had with plants in times so far back when, like the petrified forests, it's silica based plants, and everything was very, very much larger back then. Like that right there, Devil's Tower, that was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This just looks like, they said, well, science tells you that it was a volcanic eruption, pretty much. Flowing lava was shooting up and then froze, got cooled down that way. But they can't show that anywhere else. Like currently, they can't show it happening.
Yeah.
Lava forming that way. And if you actually if you look at the bottom, you can see where all the, I guess you could say, the outer rims of this, what I think is possibly some type of plant or tree. Have you heard of Mud Fossil University?
It sounds familiar. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, he's a what the heck is his degree? He's an anatomist, I believe, and he talks about giants and mud fossils, and that he thinks that the Devil's Tower. I have to throw in his theory too, because he has a lot of good reasons to say what he thinks. So this is either a type of tree plant structure with the polygonal shapes,
the hexagon.
Hexagonal, right?
Okay.
Is it? Oh, the hexagons.
Well, I was thinking the hexagonal stuff from the silicone. I
right.
Studying.
So what he's saying is that this is actually the bottom of a foot in a giant tendon.
Whoa.
Those are tendon straps, and that's where
like a human anatomy or a giant.
A giant. We'll get into that in another episode, but
absolutely.
you did mention about the people saying that some of the mountains are giants, right?
Okay, I did mention that to you last night. I was on a radio show, and there's a theory that some of the mountains look like sleeping giants.
Yeah. So what I think is that these trees, giant trees that have been cut down that we're left with that look like mesas, either they have just petrified, just like we have petrified trees, it happened that way, or they were silicon based, right? Or some of it is, I believe, mining. A lot of some of our canyons and different areas it's been mined by someone. Giant.
Yeah. Who has been mining this, though? I mean, we don't know how long this world has been here at this point. We don't know
exactly
the civilizations have been here.
So that's created what we think is mountain. We have the tree stumps that we believe are giant mountains and plateaus, and then there's the literal giants from biblical times that were titans. They were no longer giants; they're titans, and these ones were miles tall. Miles and miles tall. And when however it was done, I don't know if God came down or Anunnaki came down or aliens came down and somebody had a really cool gun or Medusa's face, they turned to stone. A lot of them fell. Some of them are still in the same position they were when it happened. So we've got giant rocks.
Like
we have. It looks like a couple hugging. You know what I mean? I mean, just some wild stuff. But that's what you mentioned, the gold mining. There's a gold rush, right? Yeah. Well, a lot of what one of the theories is that because humans, we have gold in us. Okay, it's a minute amount, and when we die, it settles. Down, and in a giant that's 5, 10, 16, 20 miles tall, if it died standing up or died laying down, the gold in its body settled down, and those are the gold veins.
I was about to say gold veins.
That we look for. So we got it. That's why I say it's so important to keep our mind open, as in this person's research and this person's research and this person's research. They all think they're right, but they don't realize they are. all right. Some of them are not right, obviously, but there's more than one needed to put this full scope of what we are on, where are we at, why is this happening, and what are we dealing with. And that also leads to what I consider you to really represent in the fantastical and supernatural and amazing world of what humans are and
Mhm.
how incredibly special we really are. And we've been they're trying their hardest to convince us that we're not. We can do
Yeah.
it with pizzazz, but their main story is you're not special. You were an accident,
You are here to
and
labor. You are here to
yeah,
work and keep your head down
exactly. And there's
and
so
not
much
living
more
your
in
true
our
potential.
that we're, oh God, there's so much that we can do. We're so special that all these beings that we talk about are a lot of them hate us for it.
Yeah.
Are jealous, and that's why, like I said, there's a lot of Bigfoots out there that want to kill us and eat us. And
Yeah.
there's some
And they
that don't,
will.
you
Yeah.
know.
Well, there's
So
some good ones, you know, and it's just mind boggling once you're trying, you know, once you start, you just are brand new to all this, you're trying to
yeah,
soak it all in. It takes a while to process some of this stuff. And really
yeah,
what it's doing is just asking us all to look at things from a different perspective.
yeah.
Okay. Instead of the same way we have to unlearn what we've been taught. Okay. And I think that's number one. We've got to learn how to deconstruct all of the things that we have been taught in our textbooks,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's kind of what we're doing now. This is the next theory that we'll talk about is the mud flood.
Mud
Okay. And now
flood.
this is something that I'm not 100% totally sold on all of it, but I just got to state that because a lot of the videos that I watch are like, well, it's because the mud is covered up the bottom floor of a house or something, you know, and that could have been a lot of stuff, you know, but it's totally possible, you know. So let's kind of get into this for a little bit. Now, this
Okay.
picture is oh, hold on one second. Let's go back to these redwoods. We do have big trees in the United States, by the way. I wanted to show
Yeah.
this picture before we move on.
Right.
Those are some big old trees, y'all. That's some lumber right there. Okay, well, this is actually in Sardis. Okay, Sardis or Sardis, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. Uh, there was actually a mud flood there for sure. Okay, at
Hmm.
some point, and all over the world, there's all these pictures of structures being dug out from the, you know, where it looks like maybe perhaps they were flooded with mud at some point.
Yep.
So I'm totally I'm open to this idea. You know, I'm open to it because there were civilizations that I do believe were wiped out. Now, how were they wiped out? This could be one of the factors. There could have
Right.
been a mud flood. So
Well,
I
we
don't
got to
know.
think what two factors or two different situations would cause that kind of devastation. I'd say possibly one is a great flood. My only issue with that is, could buildings withstand that? The ones that are above, um, that got buried. Was it the flood? Not well. You've seen how floods destroy buildings. So if it was just a rain situation, it wasn't like rushing water.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll fill up with mud once it dries and everything. Two, you're familiar with liquefaction?
No, I don't
Okay,
know.
so what liquefaction is? Have you ever used a vibrating toothbrush? You know, the little electrical
Yes.
ones.
My son
Okay,
has one. Yeah.
okay. So have you ever put toothpaste on it, hit the button, and as soon as it starts vibrating, the toothpaste goes. It just melts into
Goes
the
into it.
bristles.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're
Okay,
talking about.
so
Okay.
it's a vibrational thing, which
Okay.
I know you dig some vibrational things.
I'm a high viber. I'm a high
I
viber.
tell you. So when you vibrate the earth or dirt,
Mhm.
okay, completely dry,
Yeah.
you vibrate it just enough, it becomes liquid. It's vibrating. So anything above it just goes. Boom. Or if you have a mountain that gets vibrated like that and it turns to liquid, it just flows.
Oh.
It doesn't have to
Okay.
flow 100 miles per hour, but it'll flatten out. You know what I mean? Find its level. And so there's that possibility.
Yeah.
So there, now if we're talking about the current theory of time and dust building up over a long time, then that gives us a whole new problem, because then these buildings are even older.
I know, right? And this is said to happen in the 19th century. So that would have been the 1800s.
Yeah, so we're shooting around 300, 200 years ago. Whatever this was that happened, happened. And it's just really interesting that all the stuff that pops up about 200-300 years ago, all these things just suddenly happening. And
yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like, to me, America, I love my country with all my heart. But to me, it seems like it was a giant front set up to do what's going on right now. A whole giant, like a crooked, illegal business was created, a false history to take over this realm. It seems.
Yeah. Well, let's get in now to the Tartary Empire, the Tartarian.
Okay.
Let's talk about this tartar. I love a good steak tartar. I tell you what.
Some tartar sauce, yeah.
Or some tartar sauce.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of influence with the Tartarian architecture. Okay, and some people say, I believe this is in the United States right here, actually, and this is an old. They call it old world style. Okay, so to talk about the old world style, we have to acknowledge that there's an old world order, is what they call it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now think about the words that you hear a lot today. The phrase New World Order. Okay.
Right.
That's something that is not so pleasant for us humans. Okay. But the old world order was amazing. Okay. And we're going to get into that, Jesus. We'll talk about this. Okay. And like I said, this is Tartarian old world type architecture. A lot of the architecture allegedly that came from Tartary or Tartaria, it looks like what a mosque would look like today, with those beautiful, something from Aladdin, you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So like
Victorian style.
Victorian style. Yes. Yeah. Which is almost magical looking. Okay. And and so we will pull up. Okay. There's maps of Tartarian, lands, and I believe it was supposed to be up in around Russia. Am I right? Like somewhere near Russia?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. And they had giants that lived there. Okay. It's a mythological place at this point, because it's been wiped out. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of evidence for it, they say. But let me read this. Okay. There was advanced technology created there. It was designed and built by the great Tartary Empire. Asia, Africa, Europe, Oceania, and the Americas were part of a single high civilization, Tartarian. Okay, is what it was called. Those are two words, and had the architecture entirely focused on the extraction of electromagnetic energy. Okay. It says the Tartarian architecture, it has slight modifications according to like local areas, wherever they put this technology all over our planet in these buildings. And it was all based on like the climate, the culture, whatever kind of materials they had to build these structures. But it maintains the basic principles throughout the world. So it has the same design. It looks the same with those little cones on the top and the antennas sticking up. It says, in addition to all the details, like the beauty of all this, such as rose windows, symbols of the vibration of electromagnetic energy, were all over it. It acts on molecules and changes the behavior of cells. Okay, these buildings were actually like a med bed or something. Okay,
like a healing center.
Yeah, a healing center. That's what they were. They just exuded healing energies. It says all Tartary power stations, small and large, had pipe organs to harmonize and heal the population through sound waves, what is now known as cymatics.
Yep.
So why would people want to destroy that, Jesus?
Right.
I mean, other than to oppress a civilization.
Well, control issues is what I say.
Yeah.
Tesla, this is where it's reputed that Tesla got his technology ideas from. He was born in a time where there was still Antiquitech around. He figured out how to use it apparently. Now, for the reason why they don't want that is, if you follow the history, with them creating the Great Depression happening and all those wonderful things, and we already had it. Once you look into it, we had a bunch of electric cars already. We had electric motorcycles, electric scooters. We had so much. Like you said, free grid energy and a bunch of train systems also that was running off of it.
And giants. They had giants too. They were well known for giants.
Lots of giants.
Look how big that guy is compared to a normal human.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just living amongst little humans.
Yeah. We'll see. Because there's so much tied to that era with the giants and the buildings and some of the things they built. They had to erase everything. They're trying to erase as much as possible, and that's part of it. Unfortunately, that's part of it. And you have in Egypt too the paintings, hieroglyphs showing giants amongst normal-sized people, giants among giraffes being as tall as modern-day giraffes. Was there a great war? That's my question is, was there a great war between the Munchkins and the Giants? Because that's what it points to. And in history, there's stories of that happening.
Well, even in America, think about Lovelock Cave and how the Giants were known to eat people, eat humans, the little humans.
Yep.
And so they smoked them out of there. They burned them alive in a cave.
Yep.
I believe that's Lovelock Cave right there, where that man is squatted down.
Right.
Next to a giant.
Yep. And that picture on the left, I believe, is the Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
The Lovelock Giants, you'll hear two different versions of that story, and the difference is that one side just calls them red-haired giants. Mm-hmm. And the other side, the native sides, they were Bigfoots, big, auburn-colored hair Bigfoots that were, stealing women and impregnating them and eating them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not in our history books. I know that. It's not, and that's actually the beautiful thing of knowing how to do remote viewing and looking into some of this stuff, and I was told that, but before I even knew what remote viewing was, the head of my team who taught me, he's like, well, you're able to go in and see things that happen in history. You're going to be finding out the truth and see what really happened. That could be a dangerous thing.
Did you go to Lovelock?
I have not yet. No.
Oh.
I have remote view giants though, and there is a difference between Bigfoots and giants.
Oh, for sure.
There was a case down in 1829 down in South Georgia at the Okefenokee Swamp of a case of a giant that allegedly killed 5 hunters out in the swamp. And so I looked into it. I figured, the reports were kind of that it was probably a Bigfoot that did it. It was an actual giant, and there was a whole race of these giants living out in the swamp.
Really?
And it wasn't like they had like a nice place to live. It wasn't like they were living in, the swamp. But you had to get you had to go through the swamp to get to where they were.
Cool.
And that's a big swamp. But yeah, I've looked into the giant of Kandahar. Okay, that's another one. And Judaculla. Okay, Judaculla out in North Carolina. Nice. The giant, he actually, I think that was more of a Bigfoot. He was a big hairy giant, and he had a human girlfriend. So
I believe it.
Yeah.
Well, we got to remember that Bigfoots are not all of them look the same. They are compatible with humans, and in history, they have made it with humans. So you'll have Bigfoots that look more big, still giant, but they'll look more human. They'll have a lot sparser hair across their body. You can actually see their musculature, not just hair, and they'll have a human face. There's been, lots of them that have been described as just looking like a huge, large, like modern day man, hairy man, but
Right.
just ginormous, and then you get into the world of the 25-footers, 30-footers out in Alaska and stuff. Yeah, they're no longer called Bigfoots. Those are giants.
Just giants.
Yeah, they're giants. They're not Bigfoots. But that's what I'm saying. We got to understand that there's different kinds. I said that we got the Bigfoot community will be like, only Bigfoots exist that are giants. Then you got the giant communities like, only giants exist, not Bigfoots. And so we gotta remember that there's many different classes of creatures and beings in this realm and other realms.
And other it's all just kind of coming together for me now, like with all the stuff that we've had the pleasure of talking about. And now Jesus Tombstone is wondering, is that the picture that you've spoken of in the past about the Sasquatch corpse in a box? That picture that we showed? Yeah I figured it was. We also have a comment about 5G being horrible for the body. The technology is not always your friend. At some point we went from having, if this theory is right, and the Tartarian Empire did exist, and it's been tried to be wiped from our memories. And I do believe we do have amnesia, by the way.
Right.
They went from being healing technology and healing music. I mean, even the music today, they've had a concerted effort to change the megahertz, the frequency of music, to make it more just uncomfortable to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like they've got to add that extra little, or they got to turn it up a notch to make it where it's going to make us all irritable. Okay. Before they it
was like there used to be an issue a long time ago that there was certain chords that were considered evil.
The devil's chords, all minor.
Yes. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but there's a reason why they said that. It wasn't because it was just, that sounds funny. Once you realize that vibrations can open up portals, doorways, all kinds of stuff like that, it makes you rethink what the heck they were talking about. What did they know?
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah. And you got to think like the sound bowls that people use now, on the spiritual side, people are doing the sound frequencies, and it is very healing. It can get inside your cells and heal your body, So if we've got things that can hurt us, we also have things that can heal us. Okay. And I think it's a matter of just becoming aware of that and taking steps to maybe turn off the Wi-Fi occasionally,
right.
Like that. Because there's a better way to do all this. We just have to figure out what it is. Right. And understand, and we need to understand that there's a lot of things that are working against us as humans right now. And speaking of which, this is a topic that made me very sad, actually, to think about. We were discussing the orphan trains, okay? Because we're trying to figure out, if the history is not what we've been taught, if civilizations have been wiped out here in America, in this North American region, they had to have been replaced at some point. Okay. And so how were they replaced? Well, how did we repopulate? It would be perhaps bringing people in from other countries. And they came in from where? New York City, right? Came into New York. And a lot of children actually were sent out and dispersed as orphans all over our country in these things that they called orphan trains. Okay. Take that comment down. Yeah. So the orphan trains, this is just a kind of a sad part of reality that was, happening back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. It was around 1854 to 1929. This was going on. Children were any kind of children that were taken away from their families, or they were given up by their families, orphaned, abandoned, or abused. They were put on trains and they were relocated all over this country. On train. And they were used as child labor, as people that they were made to work on the railroads and on farms. It was quite brutal for a lot of these kids, actually. There were even ads that would encourage adoption of these kids. Okay. And
you could sell them too.
Yeah. it's just, let me tell you, this picture right here broke my heart. I just don't know. I can't deal with it. That actually looks like out of a school play that was
Yeah, it
recent.
does.
So those numbers looks like those were monogrammed on the front, but I think it was just it's probably from a play. But it's just the children,
Yeah.
and we have this today with the whole child trafficking rings and things like that going on. It's not much different than that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, it was done for a reason. When you're thinking about, again, a reset situation, to change history and teach a false history to a whole civilization, yeah, that's a great place to start, is with children, because they have brand new, fresh minds to be taught what they are being told is history. All the other indigenous people of the area were rounded up and put in camps, and told, and everything, all their histories were stripped. Everywhere, they were burning books, getting rid of everybody's histories. For some reason, they tried to destroy it all. The libraries, and like so, when you look at it when you back up and look at the whole picture, it starts to make sense.
And let me add this too, with the asylums and the prisons, these people were being sent. Thousands of people were being sent, and there weren't as many people back then as there are today in this country. And they had these huge facilities, where they were taking all these insane people, which you could be ruled insane by any means, to have to go be an inmate there. And what some say those were actually re-education camps for people who disagreed with political parties and things like that. So it got political. Okay. So, and they were doing lobotomies on people. They were brainwashing them. They were doing MK Ultra mind control on them. A lot of horrible experiments were being done on perfectly healthy human beings in those facilities. But for whatever reason, they went against somebody's, a judge or something, and they were all being sent there, and they were owned by the state. So the governments were running these facilities. Okay, so we have to know the history in order to not repeat history right now.
Exactly, and that's the whole game, is to keep us dumbed down on reality. And as long as they're able to form their own version of reality that they choose for us, then we'll forever be stuck in the circle of thinking certain things are important when they're not. For our society as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, it's sold to us as, oh, we need this stuff. It's so important. These people are crazy, but are we? Are some of us really crazy? I mean, maybe a little bit. Right. I agree. I think maybe a little bit. You gotta be a little crazy, especially to put to even speak out publicly right now about stuff like this can be kind of dangerous, because there's quite a divide right now in our world. And so I think it's great that we can actually do this. Jesus, thank you for talking about this stuff with me today. We've even got comments about things that are going on today, like CPS taking kids away, and we don't know where those kids are going. They could be going underground into bunkers for all we know. It's a lot of children disappear out of this country every year.
Lots and lots.
Yeah. Lots of adults are disappearing every day. We don't know where they're going. I just did a show last week about the missing people. So
missing 411.
Yeah, it all just kind of ties in. It really does. But yeah. I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of very interesting things today, Jesus. And
I agree.
I think what it comes down to is it's up to us to to understand what happened and to dig and do the research ourselves. But we are being fed a reality that we don't have to accept. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't have to accept any of this. We all create our own realities, and that's an ongoing theme with what I talk about is manifesting a beautiful new reality. If you want to call it moving into the 5D, do it. That's fine with me. But I'm saying to get out, there's a lot of evil in this world. Okay, and there's an agenda to keep things ugly and all of us dumbed down and drinking the fluoride Okay. And believing our textbooks. So
Yep.
yeah.
If
But
do me a favor, of all your listeners out there, okay, it's all together. We're going to try to manifest some hair from you.
you don't need any hair. You look good without hair. You're good. But we'll do it. We'll do it. If that's what
All
you want,
right, good
let's
deal.
do it. Yeah.
I do want to talk to you again in our next episode, or if you have a little more
Yeah.
time, real quick.
Yeah.
I want to touch upon that video I last sent you about the 1,000 years possibly
Let's
that
do
have
it
been.
now.
Okay.
Yeah. We've
So,
got time. I don't have a
so,
time limit. This is
so
my
what are
show.
your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. That's why the whole timeline deception is a real thing. Okay. We could have a missing or an included 1,000 years, okay, in our history. Now, why don't you explain to everybody what I'm talking about? Because
Okay. So,
it's
well,
I've got tombstones in
this
my
is
head, and
this is this is the theory is that we're not actually in 2022.
mhm.
We're 1,000 years behind than we think we are. The reason for that, there's a couple. One, that the powers that be that have told us all these lies needed that 1,000 years to fill in a bunch of stuff that they couldn't explain. Okay,
Oh yeah,
to fit their narrative. Two, as we know, the powers that be do believe and use the occult in a major way, and
for
prophecies
sure.
are important to them.
Mhm.
Now, if you've heard of false prophets
Mhm.
and false prophecies. So if you're trying to fulfill a prophecy that's not supposed to happen for another, say, 1,000 years, and you put forth that time is now, and you start doing things that the prophecy said was going to happen,
Yeah,
the people might believe it. Okay, so
exactly.
some of the proofs that this is a possibility is with historical images, uh, cemetery gravestones. A
Mhm.
lot of people, if you look in the, say, you'll see a old manuscript or on a building, carved into a building, you'll see 1958, right?
Mhm.
But the one looks like a J,
Oh my gosh.
or it's an I, which those two letters were used. The J meant in the year of Jesus, after his birth. It wasn't always AD, after death. Okay.
And Dominio or something like that. I think I say
Yeah.
after death too, but yeah.
So um, a lot of the historians have decided that it was a one. And you have a ton of stuff that shows the I or the J and then 843 or 945. Or, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they were just like, let's roll with it. They're believing us. If you see an I or a J, that's a one.
It's a one. Well, it's
You know?
a collective effort
Oh,
to all
yeah.
agree on something to change the narrative, to just kind of tweak it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow. Yeah.
that's the theory, without going too deep
I
into it.
believe I mean, why not? I mean, I don't know. At this point, I do feel like I'm living in the twilight zone, as my mother says. C Duke, thank you for that super chat. That is so sweet of you. You are one of my biggest supporters. I love that. Thank you so
Awesome.
much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Why not though? I mean, that video that you sent me, they were showing tombstones that were from like 640 or something like that
Yep.
in Portugal. But it was when settlers were supposed to be, they weren't supposed to be there at that time. And it was like the timelines just were not adding up. Okay.
Yeah.
And
What
and
we're told, it should have been 1649. Not,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So
it would make sense that that's why they would screw with the timelines like that with the years, is so they could add 1,000 years worth of bull crap that didn't actually
yeah.
happen.
Yep.
Ooh. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a lot. It's a lot for everybody to think about now. So, yeah, I don't know. There's actually been Vikings, mummified Vikings found in
Yep.
the caves of Kentucky
Yep.
that had pouches with Indian head pennies in them. You know,
You
It's like,
know?
that doesn't make sense. There's also been ancient Egyptian mummies found in caves in Arizona and out west,
Yep.
maybe the Grand Canyon or somewhere.
Okay, here's one from left field, okay? From
Okay.
left field for you.
Okay.
All right. So some of the bones that they, because there's actually people that don't think dinosaurs were real.
Mhm.
That it's a real theory
I was
that
going to bring this up
yeah.
actually. I was
Um.
thinking about it.
I, the problem is that there's bones being dug up. A lot of the skeletons that are found are jumbled with a whole bunch of other skeletons
Mhm.
because some sort of huge cataclysmic wave or mud flood had happened at some point.
Yeah.
And the only problem is some of the bones still have tissue
Yeah.
and tendons and are rotting still, which is impossible. After 10,000 years, none of that should be viable. None of it.
So
Not,
maybe they're not that old, huh?
exactly. And then you're finding, the Ica stones. Have you heard of the Ica stones?
Mm-mm.
Oh
No,
boy.
not familiar with
Oh,
that.
oh boy. ICA, the Ica stones.
Okay.
And thousands upon thousands of stones and some sculptures, a whole bunch of sculptures of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
On these stones, dinosaurs and man together
Yeah. I've heard of
being
that.
etched on these stones, and the same thing with these statues, little figurines of uh, people riding dinosaurs and stuff.
I
You
mean,
know,
I
and on
don't
these,
see how that's, impossible. I think it can
yeah.
happen.
So they say that the powers that be put out secrets and plain view for us to see, but to mock us. It's just funny. The
Yeah.
Fred Flintstone,
Exactly.
and
Kids cartoons. Yeah.
yeah, honestly, they put a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff out for us to see, and like, where'd they get that idea? And the houses of the Flintstones, turns out there's actual buildings that we're finding.
That look like
That,
that. That's right.
yeah,
Wow.
so there's a lot of history that's been hidden from us, and especially the supernatural side and spiritual side has been hidden from us. So
Yeah.
it's like ridiculously. But,
And
yeah.
and they say that a lot of the dinosaur bones have radiation. They're radioactive, so that's why they have lead paint on them in the museums. It's almost like a bomb wiped them out or something. Maybe a nuclear or atomic bomb.
Well, see, that's another one of the. I used to work at the Natural History Museum, give tours and teach at the museum.
Yeah,
And
cool.
a lot of people don't understand. They say that one of the reasons they don't think dinosaurs existed is because the majority of museums don't have real dinosaur bones in them, which is true.
Yeah.
The actual bones are kept in temperature cooled areas and away from the public because just the camera flashes. So many people take pictures. The ultraviolet light destroys the specimen. So you've got tons of casts of dinosaurs. Not 500 Tyrannosaurus Rex skeletons haven't been found, but there's over 500 museums that want to show it.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you've got that issue with the museums having certain bones and not having certain bones, and a lot of people not understanding why that is. And I could go into a whole thing of dinosaurs, like and they say, oh, it's not in the Bible. It's like, well, the word dinosaur wasn't invented till the 1800s. Before that, they were called dragons and terrible lizards and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's interesting how everything is all about perception and how we perceive things, and it all ties back into perception and deception. A lot of deception with our perception. They're deceiving us the way we perceive everything, whoever they are. Who is they?
they, them, whatever.
We don't know who they are, but there's somebody out there. Yeah. I mean, are we just like a little aliens science project? I mean, that's a good question too, right?
Right.
I almost feel like after looking at those large trees and thinking about giants being dead, dead giants being mountains and things like that, are we just like ants to something bigger? I mean, I don't know. My mind is just blown.
Well, you remember that picture I sent you of that ocean, and at the bottom of the ocean, that little bubble?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so I'm like I just have the horrible feeling that that we were just a mining expedition
We
that
are.
that got out of control, and
Yes.
it's been hidden. I think that we're stuck down there, hidden from the rest of the world. Because if you read the Sumerian text, making us and making the Enkidu, which I think are the
Mhm.
Bigfoots, all of that was not supposed to happen. That was against the rules, the laws of the universe, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
You're not supposed to create a species for slaves and
That's
slavery work.
right. Yeah.
So who
Well,
knows? I
well,
don't.
and if you want to really go down another rabbit hole, what about the population being perhaps replaced by alien life, people that were seated here that aren't completely human, you know, and we're descended from those people. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I think. That's how they created us.
Yeah.
I think the Bigfoot was the first version they made, but they were too strong.
Hmm.
Possibly lived too long. They were rebellious, and they made us later because we were easier to govern. We're smaller, weaker, easier to
Yeah.
control. You know, but
Yes. That's why we got to tap into our true power, and that's in your mind and with
yep,
love, love and light, and know how to fight too if you need to.
definitely.
Yeah, man, this is awesome, Jesus. Like, you know what I really would like to talk with you about in the future? We'll save it for another show. I want
Yep,
to talk about star forts.
awesome.
I don't know what they
Definitely.
are. I don't know why they're here, but they're everywhere, and they seem to have a lot to do with what we're talking about today.
Oh yeah,
Okay. So
definitely.
we're going to get into Star Force next time you come on, and whatever else. I'm sure there'll be a lot more stuff.
Cool. Oh
So
yeah, I
yeah.
definitely I have a lot more to share.
Yeah, you do. You are just a wealth of
Definitely.
knowledge, Jesus, and I just love it. Like this has been an amazing conversation. I think everybody in the
I've
chat
enjoyed
really
it.
loved it. And thank you to everybody in the chat today for being here. You guys are awesome.
Yep.
And
Thank you.
truly,
Well, it's
William
nice
Nighthawk, thank you.
to be able to talk about more of everything that I do study instead of just the usual just Bigfoot. There's so much more that yeah I research that I want to share with the people. So thank you for letting me do that. Talk about all this.
Yeah. Well, I think I got frozen there for a second. But yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. It's all my pleasure having you on today. William
Thank you.
Nighthawk's in the chat. Hello, William. I love you too. Thank you for being here. And yeah, and he said thank you for the show, Jesus, too. So yeah, well, this is awesome, everybody. Well, y'all please tune in this weekend to Friday night. I have remote viewed The Beast of Bray Road. Okay.
Cool.
So I'm going to be talking about that on my show Friday night. 9 p.m. Eastern. And then this weekend, I have Craig Woolheater out of Texas coming on the show. He's throwing the Texas Bigfoot Conference here in a couple weeks. And then I've got the Sasquatch Sisters Northwest on. I saw Cindy in the chat today. She's part of that. And my friend Tanya.
Cool.
So we're going to have a fun weekend. And I'll be on Brunch with
Awesome.
Bigfoot tomorrow. So everybody tune in. Jesus, where can people find you? Social media?
Uh, yeah, you could
Website?
find me, of course, on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Breaking Bigfoot.
Okay.
On all my videos, you in the description is an email you can reach me at if you want to contact me for whatever reason. Um, yeah, if you
Okay.
get to be a new subscriber, go all the way to the bottom, start at Tule Creek Bigfoot, and work your way up. And by the time you get to the top, I'll have a new video coming out.
Awesome. You have a great YouTube channel and you're really
Thank you.
funny too. I like that about you. You put a little humor into everything and that's how we all should be rolling right now. Yeah.
You know,
It's fun. Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you, Jesus. Thank you so much for being here. You guys, next week I'm going to have Dennis Carroll on the show. We're going to be talking about vampires. Okay. So everybody tune into A Glitch in the Matrix. Remember, you guys are the glitch in the matrix. So y'all stay glitchy. Okay. And Jesus, have an awesome day. We'll see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day. Bye.